What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here for Cheesehead TV with your Packers Daily Chat. Coming to you live on Facebook. I'll post this on YouTube later. End of the day on Thursday here at the 2019 NFL Combine in Indianapolis. Long day, talking to a lot of people, but I wanted to jump on, talk to you fine folks, see what's on your mind. When it comes to the Packers, not a whole lot of news today. Obviously, LaFleur and Gutekunst talked on Wednesday. Thursday, they were busy assessing whatever they wanted to assess in regards to the prospects. Some chatter from some of the prospects, offensive linemen and running backs, what have you, lifting and talking, what have you. Hello to everybody here in the comment section. What's the goods, Joe? The goods are, I'm talking to you fine folks. Julia. Oi, what's up? Rumors, Matthews in contract talk with Green Bay. Thomas, I cannot confirm or deny, said rumors. I don't think he's in contract talks from the people I've talked to here. I do believe the Packers are interested in bringing him back if he gets out into the free agent market and doesn't find what he's looking for, so to speak. I do not doubt for a second that the Packers would welcome him back on a team-friendly deal, something that might be incentive-laden, but I'd be very surprised if they signed him prior to free agency. But that's my limited knowledge. Who knows? Your favorite play in Packers history? History? I mean, okay, favorite. You're saying favorite, not the... I mean, I think most people would say the most iconic play would be the Bart Starr sneak in the Ice Bowl. I think that's the kind of obvious answer there. My personal favorite? There are so many. I mean, from Ahman Green getting into the end zone in 2003 to cement my fantasy championship to the Brett Favre bombed a Donald Driver in Champaign, Illinois against the Bears, which is a play, by the way, that does not exist on the internet. You can't, I challenge anyone to find it. It's hard. Maybe it's out there, but I cannot find it. Video of it. Because it was an amazing throwing catch and an amazing play that caused me to jump on Corey Behnke's sofa up in Inwood, Manhattan, all those years ago when the Bears were playing in Champaign. It's an incredible play, and it's hard to find. But that's one of my favorites. The wheel route to Dorsey Levens in the NFC Championship game in Lambeau against the Panthers that helped send the Packers to the Super Bowl. That's one of my favorite plays. Obviously, said Super Bowl, Brett Favre to Andre Rison early, Brett Favre to Antonio Freeman in the second half, Brett Favre running for a touchdown, Desmond Howard returning the kick for a touchdown. All those are favorites. Brett Favre to Wesley Walls the night after his father died. There's a lot of favorite plays. I don't think I could ever narrow it down to my all-time favorite play, though. There are just too many. Desmond TD, there you go. Michael, that's obviously a favorite, no doubt. Al Harris, INT versus Seattle. Thomas, that's another fine addition. That's the thing. There are so many great ones. It's hard to narrow down one specific favorite of all time. There have been so many great plays throughout the years. Even in the down years, there have been great plays. Corey points out a great one. Magic to Sharp versus the Bears. 100%. What do you think the likelihood is the Packers roster a fullback this year? I think the likelihood's pretty good. I'm not going to sit out here in late February and mark it down zero, dude, but I will say I do think there's a good chance they have a fullback on the roster. Now, obviously, they entered 2018 without a fullback on the 53, got one later in the year. That was Mike McCarthy's offense. Very different circumstances. I think they'll have a fullback on the roster this year. Who that is, I have no idea. Matthew, another fine addition. B.J. Raji touchdown versus the Bears. The only play ever in the history of my life where I had to exit a press box. I had to go out in the hallway so I could go, woo, much louder than that, because I was so excited. What about the Packers trading their 2 first rounds to the Jets for the 3rd? Erica, I think that's something that I've seen quite a bit posited on the old tweet machine and the internet in general over the course of the last 24 hours. I don't see it. I don't see the Jets taking that deal. I think it takes a lot more than 2 first rounders, 12 and 30, to jump up to number 3 overall. I mean, you don't have to look much further than what the Bears had to give up to jump 1 spot in the top 5 a couple years ago. I just think it would take more than those 2 first rounders, and I don't think Gutekunst does that. Now, barring, say, Gutekunst having a all-world grade on one of these prospects at the top of the draft, and that's a possibility. I don't see it, but you can never say never. Hawkinson and Risner in round 1. John, I would love to give Dalton Risner on the squad. I don't know if he's a first-round pick. Maybe late first round. It'd be interesting if they went that way, just because if they went with those 2 picks, because Packer fans would be screaming, or a section of Packer fandom would be screaming that they hadn't addressed edge rush, they hadn't addressed the defense, etc. But hey, I'm all for it. If those are the 2 best guys available when they're picking, I'm all in. And you guys know I love Hawkinson, so yeah, I'm down. Do you value combine or pro day stats, Andrew? That's a good question. I value them in so much that they are part of a puzzle piece. They are part of a whole puzzle. They are puzzle pieces within a whole puzzle. They are valuable in the sense that personnel people with the Packers and with obviously the 31 other teams, they will add them to the scouting profile that they have for each player. They don't mean much to me individually. Like if a guy runs fast, great. Or if his hands are small or his arm reach is short, whatever, fine. That's all information. It's all just data for people to collect and put together when they're putting together the profile on the draft prospect. Does it mean much to me personally? No. Pro day, combine, whatever, doesn't mean much to me at all. I see most of what I see as far as when I'm looking at draft prospects, I look at the tape, and that's 99% of it. Yes, could it come down to the Packers selecting a guy in the draft because his arm length is a little more desirable over another prospect? Or is there something that separates him athletic testing wise over another prospect? Then yes, the combine or pro day can be valuable in that regard. But as someone who's sitting outside, just looking at prospects on tape, it means very little to me. And I know that I am an outsider when it comes to evaluating prospects and putting together a board or putting together a mock draft and how I might value certain players coming into the league. And that's fine. That's not my job. My job is to look at what the Packers do and react to it and have an opinion on it. And my opinion is that there are certain players that I love and I would love to see on the Packers squad. And if the Packers go that way, great. If they don't, I'm excited to see what their choices may end up doing. But it was funny because earlier today I tweeted out, actually very early this morning, first thing this morning, I tweeted out Peter Schrager's mock draft for NFL.com. It's his first mock he's done this season. And he had Devin White and Hollywood Brown going to the Packers with 12 and 30 respectively. And not everyone, but a lot of Packer fans said, they didn't address edge rush. It's like, yeah, great. So Mike Pettin has a long history of generating rush, including last year, without a premier edge rusher. And would it be nice to have that guy? Yeah, great, of course. But, if that guy isn't available and you don't want to reach for a guy in the draft, you don't have to say we have to get an edge rusher in the first round if it means betraying your board. I'd much rather have the more talented players, the blue chip guys. That's just my philosophy. That's how I feel about it. I get opinions may differ, but I want the best players available to be on the Packers and to help the Packers win. And look, you look at Hollywood Brown, yo, have you watched, Taysom Hill? I'm sorry, Tyreek Hill the last few years, the difference he has made to that Chiefs squad? And I'm not saying Brown's going to come into the league and be that, but that's a difference that type of player can make. I'm all for that on the Packers. I'm all for talent and difference makers, as opposed to reaching for, we got to have this. We got to have this position. Well, great. You've got that position, but you could have had a much better player who would make a bigger difference at another spot, but you passed it up because of need. Again, that's just me. That's my opinion. I get that not everyone agrees. It's just where I'm at. Let's see. What position are you most looking forward to seeing at the Combine? I always like watching the quarterbacks throw. I believe that happens on Saturday. It's just because it's the one thing, the tangible thing that you can look at and say, it's not something where you don't have to couch it. There's no caveat available. It's like, okay, they're not wearing pads, or, oh, well, he's not going against a defender, or whatever, the wide receiver is running their routes, etc. It's like throwing is an elemental thing. It's an elemental part of the game of football where there's not much difference between, yes, throwing with pads on, it's a little different, or a helmet on, it's a little different. Throwing against defenders, yes, you got to make different decisions, what have you, but the art, the mechanics of throwing, that's pretty simple, and it doesn't matter how it's being done. You can kind of tell where a guy is at and how he throws the football. So Saturday afternoon, or maybe late morning, when they throw, that's kind of what I'm interested in. All right, everybody. Do you think Ted Thompson chased need more than other people think? Good question, Michael. I think he preached best player available, and the Packers preached best player available quite a little bit. I do think they did go for need a little bit more than maybe some people recognize, especially if you look at their track record, especially early in the process, as far as each individual draft goes. I mean, picks like Dayton Jones, Derek Sherrod, they're picks that, or hell, B.J. Raji, that was a need pick. Michael Crabtree famously was the first player on their board. He was available when they selected. They didn't take him. They took B.J. Raji instead because they had a need. Now, obviously, that kind of worked out, but sometimes it didn't. And I think earlier in the process, Ted was a little bit more swayed toward need than maybe most people believe or recognized. But, I still think Ted did a great job of building a roster that was filled with players that he felt would help the Packers the most, outside of whatever their needs may have been. Do you expect the tight ends to stay on the team besides Graham? Good question, Matthew. Right now, the only ones who are under contract heading into 2019 are Jimmy Graham and Bob Tonyan. Kendricks and his representatives, I know, are slated to talk to the Packers this week. We'll see if that means they're coming back. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the case, but I know they're going to talk. I think Mercedes Lewis is probably out the door. Clearly, I think the Packers are going to have to address the position. I think it's going to happen in the draft. I doubt they foray out again into free agency, but you never know. Go Pack Go from Houston, Texas. What's up, Wesley? Thanks so much for joining us. All right, I'm going to have to jump, everyone, but thank you so much for the questions. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to yours. Make sure you're checking Cheesehead TV for all the latest. I'll be back tomorrow with all the latest from Indianapolis and the Combine here. Make sure you check out cheeseheadtv.com. I'll post this later on YouTube for anybody who subscribes there. And the latest Naglers Never Right will be up tomorrow morning. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night.